Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports. It's also the fastest growing fantasy app in the industry. In the pick'em game, you can pick whether your favorite players will have a higher or lower stat total in that week's game for a chance to win big. And as you already know, I'm going Josh Allen higher in yards every single week. So sign up today with promo code Buffalo Fanatics and get your first deposit doubled up to $100. Visit underdogfantasy.com or find them in the App Store. And don't forget to register with promo code Buffalo Fanatics to get your first deposit doubled up to $100.
Woo! Ho-ho! What is up, Buffalo Fanatics? It is game mother effing day. We are just a little over an hour away from kick. Bills, Dolphins, the battle of AFC East supremacy on the line today. The game of the day. It's not even close. I don't care if you're a Fins fan, a Bills fan. This is the game everyone's got on their radar today, and for good reason. Winner decides the first overall place in the AFC East for now. And if you look at the coming up schedule for both these teams, it's likely whoever wins today is going to be able to maybe hang on to that spot for the foreseeable future. We'll see what unfolds. Huge game. Just a little over an hour away. Z-Biden here with you on the BF Tailgate. So excited to have you in before this game. Rico will be by in a little bit. Maybe Rev. I'm not entirely sure. I know Rico will be on when he gets back home. Just me for the meantime while we get things kicked off here. If you haven't tuned in already, Jacksonville is up, 20-7 on the Atlanta Falcons live from across the pond. And I had to get up and get acclimated because not that we're overlooking this game, believe me, the last thing I'm doing is overlooking this game. But I'm getting acclimated because a week from today, we will be up at the crack ass of dawn, pouring our beer into our cereal bowl as we watch the Bills take on the same Jacksonville Jaguars currently in London at Tottenham Hotspur. Is that what it's called? Hotspur Stadium, Totem Hotspur, whatever. Week from today, Bills, Jags in London at the crack ass of dawn. That'll be a fun one. I hope you enjoy today's 1 o'clock Eastern time slot because this is the last time the Bills play on 1 o'clock until I believe after Thanksgiving. Let me double check on that. Almost positive it's either right around Thanksgiving or after Thanksgiving. So I know this is a gigantic debate amongst the fan base, the 1 o'clock time slate versus the primetime games, whatever. It doesn't bother me either way. No, I was actually wrong on that. Attaboy. But it starts against the Patriots. The Patriots is that 1 o'clock game. That's the last 1 o'clock game. But I guess I was somewhat right. This is the last 1 o'clock game for the next 2 weeks. And then there's that 1 o'clock game against the Patriots after that game. I was way off. After that game, there's not another 1 o'clock game until New Year's Eve. That's what it was. I got the holidays mixed up. Either way, 1 o'clock time slot today, which does feel a little underwhelming for this game, but I don't mind it. I said this earlier in the week. The reason I like the 1 o'clock time slot for this game is it's very representative of what this rivalry has been over the last 2 decades. The Bills and the Dolphins were both buried in the 1 o'clock time slot forever. They were not worthy of being in primetime slots. And now, of course, the Bills are on primetime, which feels like every other week. And you'll notice that as the schedule gets into its bulk here coming up. And the Dolphins have been on primetime as well early on in this season. They have numerous primetime games throughout the year. The Bills and the Dolphins have battled it out at 1 o'clock forever. As the Patriots ran the division, it was the Bills and the Dolphins and the Jets picking up the pieces. So it's kind of nice as this rivalry truly takes shape because, as we know, the current state of the New England Patriots and the Aaron Rodgers-less Jets, the division is going through either Miami or Buffalo. So you're watching this evolution of the rivalry, and I would anticipate that a game like this would not be buried in the 1:00 window again moving forward. As we know, last year in the regular season, Bills, Dolphins, the Bills win that game as time expires on the foot of Tyler Bass in the snow. They do. Remember, Tyler Bass slid afterwards, Snow Angels. That was actually on NFL Network last night. I was rewatching. I was at that game. One of my all-time favorites. That game, of course, was a Saturday night primetime, and that lived up to the billing. And I got a feeling this one will today. This is going to be a massive game of epic proportions. There is a ton on the line, and I keep reiterating this because it's only week 4, so people might look at this game and say, hey, yeah, it's a divisional game. Yeah, it's a huge opponent against Miami, who's on a roll right now, yada, yada, but it's still only week 4. Fine. But if you look at the foreseeable future here for both these teams, the Bills are going to be favored in every game moving forward, probably until they hit Philadelphia, which is not for a while away here. And that's on the road. That's the only reason I think they might not be a favorite in that game. If you look at the Dolphins schedule, it's pretty much the same type of deal. They'll be favored in most games as well, I would anticipate. So when you keep that in mind, the winner of today will more than likely hold on to the lead in the AFC East until they have an unforeseen slip-up. This game is huge, and I have a feeling we will be looking back at this game in a major way when January rolls around. So I know it's week 4. I know it's early in the season still. Don't get it twisted. This game is massive. I can't help. I got my Diet Coke going here. I'm a big DC guy. I can't help but every time I'm drinking like Coke now, I can't stop thinking of what they're doing with the Pepsi and Josh Allen here. They're trying to make that a real thing, by the way. I saw someone post this the other day. They were doing taste tests outside of Wegmans where they're dumping the hot sauce in the Pepsi. I don't know if anybody here has tried that yet or has dared to even think to try it. But every time I drink this now, it's what I think about. I've been seeing it everywhere. Bills win today, though. I might give it a try. Who knows? Speaking of the game today, as we get into it, and we'll talk in depth about what we can expect to see today and what I think is going to happen come the end of it. The inactives have just come out for the Miami Dolphins as well as the Buffalo Bills. Let's start with the Miami Dolphins. They're inactives today. Jalen Phillips, that's a big one. Linebacker Jalen Phillips out for the Miami Dolphins. Deshaun Elliott at safety. Cornerback Eli Apple is inactive today. O-lineman Connor Williams and tight end Tyler Kroft. Those are your inactives for the Miami Dolphins. The big one you circle there is more than likely Jalen Phillips, who will be out for the Buffalo Bills today. As we already know, no Jordan Poyer today. That's the biggest loss for the Buffalo Bills. Once again, Kaiir Elam inactive. I had spoken with, who did I speak with earlier this week? I think it was Dan Mitchell. I was on with Dan Mitchell. And he had mentioned to me, maybe we see Kaiir Elam get some burn today to use his speed to try and keep up with the likes of Tyreek Hill. Whoa, God, excuse me. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Not the case. Kaiir Elam once again inactive. And then as well as Poona Ford, he will be inactive as well. So the injury list for the Bills, outside of course, that big missing piece in Jordan Poyer today, has been looking pretty damn solid early on in the year here. And not that we will see him this week on the field, but we will see him this week on the practice field. This just in this weekend. Von Miller cleared to practice this week. He will practice this week. I don't know if we will see him on the field in London against the Jags. Part of me doubts that. I had said earlier in the year when they announced that he'd be eligible around this time that I thought we would see him. Thigh Doc said, I doubt it. Even Hall of Famers got to practice. So I doubt we see him next week, but you'll see him on the practice field. And I think it's very likely we will see Von Miller under the lights in Buffalo against Brian Daboll in the New York Giants 2 weeks from today. So that's very exciting for an infinite amount of reasons, but none more than the fact that the Bills defense might already be playing the best defense in the league through the first 3 weeks, and that is without Von Miller. Imagine what this defense is going to look like with the Hall of Famer up on that defensive line. I cannot wait to see it. Let's get to some comments here. See what everybody is talking about this morning as we get ready for Bills Dolphins. Let me know in the comments as well what you think is going to happen today. Give me your score predictions and let me know your hot takes. I'll read a couple of them on here throughout the show. Roy Collins coming here saying Zeba enjoys enjoyed watching Skylar Thompson. Well, listen, I'll tell you one thing. Today is going to be different than the last time we saw these Miami Dolphins, that's for sure. Bills did not play their best game, right? Tua Tagovailoa not active in that playoff game. There's a lot at stake for both these teams, of course, but I think you look back at that last game and both teams got a chip on their shoulder because of it. It was actually a loss for the Bills. It was a win for the Bills that felt like a loss the way Miami Dolphins fans talk about it. Everybody references the playoff game saying, oh, you barely beat the Miami Dolphins with a backup quarterback. So the chip on the shoulder for Buffalo is, hey, we got to prove that we still own the Dolphins here despite who's playing at quarterback, right? And for the Dolphins, you're feeling pretty good with the fact that you should have probably have beaten the Buffalo Bills week 15. If you go back and watch that game, I felt as though the Miami Dolphins had outplayed the Bills for the majority of that game, but had made a bunch of crucial mistakes in very important areas and wound up slipping up. But hey, when you got two great teams going at it, those are the difference makers. So the Dolphins in this one, definitely more of a revenge type atmosphere for the Miami Dolphins. They're coming off two consecutive losses, of course, one being in the playoffs, which was the last time we saw these Dolphins, and it was not a great performance by the Bills at all, despite getting the victory. And for the Dolphins, you're looking at that thinking, we're really close here. We're really close. We felt we might have been able to edge out the Bills despite not having Tua in that playoff game. And here we are coming off a 70-point performance, a 50-point margin of victory against the Denver Broncos. They're riding high. Something's got to give today, folks. The Buffalo Bills come in off of 38 points and 37 points in their last two games. Defense has been absolute lockdown, shut down completely. The Washington Commanders and the Las Vegas Raiders held the Jets in check too, of course. They've been on an all-time clip. Offense is looking great as well for the Bills. Maybe not as prolific as the Dolphins have, although nobody has looked that prolific in the league thus far. Something's got to give. One of these units got to come out on top. One of these units has to edge out the other. To me, that's where this game lies. This game lies in the battle between the Miami Dolphins offense and the Buffalo Bills defense, because I feel as though the Bills have the edge when it comes to having the better defensive unit. Right now, I don't know if you can argue the Bills offense has been better than the Dolphins. I just don't think their argument is there. How can you argue against a team that just put up 70 points? They're absolutely rolling, clicking on all cylinders, putting up historic type numbers. But we all know the Buffalo Bills offense is still one of the best in this league, and that's no debate either. Where I find the edge to be here is that Miami's defense, although good and serviceable, it is not at the level of the Buffalo Bills. So if the Buffalo Bills defense can hold serve against this offense of the Miami Dolphins, while the Buffalo Bills offense takes advantage of a defense that I do not think is on par with the Bills, it's advantage Buffalo. But it's an easier task said than done. That is 100% for sure. The Bills have owned these Miami Dolphins throughout recent memory here. I think, 11 of the last 13 games the Buffalo Bills have won against the Miami Dolphins, but the last three have all been within 3 points. If you look prior to that, the Bills were mostly beating the shit out of the Miami Dolphins. And that's a good sample size to show you how much that this rivalry has tightened up. The last several matchups have been awfully close. And if you look at the Vegas line today, as we approach the game, less than an hour till kick, it is still at that -3 mark for the Bills. And if you are not an avid football gambler, the indication of the lines are typically noticed by the amount of points given to a home team. And that's almost always 3 points. So in the eyes of Vegas, the Bills are getting 3 points for being at home. And if you take that into consideration, they're viewing this game as a toss-up, right? Almost like it could go either way type game. I think that's how the majority of people see it. I think if you are if you're an honest bi-partial fan, you probably see this game like that as well. You could argue an edge for the Dolphins. You could argue an edge for the Bills. You wipe the slate clean, in my opinion. Everything that's happened before this game, not only between these Bills and these Dolphins, but through the first 3 weeks, it's irrelevant. I don't care last week that the Miami Dolphins scored 70 points. I don't care last week that the Bills defense
turned the Washington Commanders offense over 5 times, sacked Sam Howell, 9 times? It's all great. It's all good. Not going to matter today because I venture to believe I'll make a guarantee right now. The Bills aren't sacking Tua 9 times, and the Miami Dolphins are not scoring 70 points. None of it matters. I think today we might see a bit of a different type of game than most people anticipate. You look at that 70 points scored by Miami last week. You look at the 38 points scored by the Bills offense, 38 the week before, 37 last week. A lot of people are anticipating a high-scoring game. I personally don't know if it's going to be as high-scoring as many people believe. I think that you're looking at this game where you got two teams who are going to try their best to maintain possession throughout the game, which could lead to a lower scoring performance. Both these teams are better running the ball than people give credit for. And I think that that's going to be a huge factor. Time of possession to me is going to be massive in this game. The more you're going to give that opposing offense their opportunities, the more likely that game's going to shift away from being in your favor. And we all know through the early going here, the Bills have been terrific with their time of possession, most notably against the Las Vegas Raiders. They had the ball for over 40 minutes in that game. That is a massive credit to what the Bills have been able to do in the run department. But the Miami Dolphins, despite despite their offense being spotlighted by Tua's efficiency early on here, and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, I think the one thing that sticks out the most today is the run game. I think Raheem Mostert is one of those underrated guys for the Miami Dolphins in which the offense goes through, but it might not be as highlighted as much because you have so many other pieces on that offense that get the spotlight. If you remember last year in week 15, the Buffalo Bills had allowed Raheem Mostert 100 yards on the ground in the first quarter of play. They would go on to really mitigate what he did the rest of the game, but early on, he had a major impact on that game. And to me, if the Miami Dolphins can get Raheem Mostert going heavily today, that is major advantage to Miami. That is exactly what they want to do. The more that they get him involved and the more that he's running the ball in an efficient manner, the more that allows the offense to open up the pass game for Tua, for Tyreek, for Waddle. The Bills have got to be able to shut down Raheem Mostert today. And I know that's a crazy thing to think about. Because if you're going to ask anybody going into this one, what do the Bills got to do today? I think the easy answer would be, well, you got to shut down Tyreek Hill. Yeah, easier said than done. No one really outside of Bill Belichick's defense has been able to truly eliminate Tyreek Hill. I thought the Bills did a good job of allowing his performance to not dictate what Miami did on the field in week 15 last year. Tua connected with Tyreek Hill a few times throughout that game. He had 79 yards and a touchdown, but he wasn't a major impact throughout that game like many people anticipate that he will be in every game that he plays in. The big performance in that game was Jalen Waddle's 3 catches for over 100 yards, one of which was, I think, an 80-yard touchdown. But that only came on 3 catches. The biggest performance to me in that game was what Raheem Mostert was able to do and how the Miami offense was able to balance the rest of their game off of that. But the Bills are a new type offense this year as well, and that's something that you have now got to respect if you are the Miami Dolphins defense. It's no longer going into the game completely focusing on shutting down Josh Allen. Now, if you're a defensive coach, that is the majority of your game plan, and it has to be. It always will be with Josh Allen on the field. But this run game now for the Bills is not an afterthought. You cannot go into the game and overlook the Bills' run game and completely focus on what Josh Allen is capable of doing. As it stands right now through the first 3 weeks of the season, James Cook is your 3rd highest leading rusher in the NFL. Coming off 2 performances with 95-plus yards on the ground. He's also been active through the air as well. I think personally, with 2 quarterbacks who are clicking right now, 2 offenses overall that are humming, you got weapons on both sides. I really do think the underrated aspect of this game is both the running efficiency and performances of both James Cook and Raheem Mostert, both in the top 10 right now when it comes to leading rushers in the NFL. Scrolling through some comments here. I want to see what the predictions are going to be. Keep those coming, by the way. Danny Smith comes in here. Danny Smith saying Buffalo Bills win 38-31. Danny's got a high scoring game in Buffalo today. Can't get right. He's got 28-24 Bills. So we got some high scoring guesses coming in here early. Brian saying 27-21 Miami. Although I don't think Miami wins today, I do think the score total comes around that mark. I could see a 27-24 type game, maybe a 24-21. I don't anticipate both these teams cracking 30. My personal hot take for this game, if I had to have one, would be I don't see either team cracking 30. I think the overall goal for either side this afternoon is going to be holding on to the ball and maintaining possession. And I think that's going to lead to a lower scoring game than many anticipate. But at the same time, if the defense on both sides kind of lacks, if the Bills defense doesn't show up the way they've been showing up the last couple of weeks, if Miami's defense comes out and shows up like they did against the LA Chargers in week 1, this could be a track meet. Easily could. 31-17 says Keely Smith in favor of the Bills. Lil comes in here, says 31-24 Miami. John Marlowe, he's got 27-20 Bills. Jay Tree, 28-24 Bills. Ryan's got 24-13 Miami. Bills, 24-17 according to Luke. And then my man Doug, he's got 32-17 Bills. I'm not entirely sure what to expect today. I think what we have seen early on from both sides of the coin here in Miami and Buffalo, I think what both teams have done early on here is not the most accurate representation of what we are going to see today. Because I think that early on here, you have had two teams who have not played the toughest of competition. You have had two teams that have had the opportunity to exploit their opponents and make their certain positional groups perhaps look inflated compared to what they might look like against two teams here currently that I think are on very similar levels. Like I was mentioning earlier, I don't know if I anticipate the Bills defense being able to be as dominant as you would be against Jimmy Garoppolo and Sam Howell. I just don't know if that's possible. And then, of course, with the Miami offense, I just don't see how you're going to be able to put up the amount of points that you did against the Chargers or clearly against the Denver Broncos against this defense. The game that I think is most representative of what we can see out on the field today would be the Miami Dolphins versus the New England Patriots game. The Bills defense is very similar to that of the Patriots game if we're talking about the three opponents thus far that the Dolphins have faced. They have faced the Chargers, the Patriots, and the Broncos. If you're talking about a defense that's most closely related to that of the New England Patriots, it is the Buffalo Bills. And the Buffalo Bills defense, if they are able to limit the run game, if they are able to get to Tua Tagovailoa adequately throughout this game, there's just no way they're going to be able to run the scoreboard up. If we look back at that game against the Patriots, they were able to take away Tyreek Hill's ability to dominate a game. They were able to rattle Tua a bit. He did have an interception in that game. They were able to keep the game in check, and that ultimately led to the Patriots having the ability to go down with an opportunity to tie the game on their final possession. We all know that the offense of the New England Patriots is just not comparable to that of the Buffalo Bills. If you are a Bills fan in here right now, that game is what probably has you feeling the most confident going into this one. If you look at what the defense was able to do to Miami in that game, while also being able to be in it all the way till the end, you're thinking to yourself, well, hey, the Bills defense is on par with that of the Patriots. If they can have a similar defensive performance, adding on top of the fact that the Bills offense is light years ahead of the Patriots, you're probably feeling pretty good. But I don't think anybody right now is feeling as good as the Miami Dolphins fan base and their team overall. How could you not be feeling just off the charts? I remember what it felt like beating the Patriots in the wild card game in that perfect performance where the Bills just could not miss. They scored on every single possession. It was extraordinary. And even that didn't come close to the offensive performance the Dolphins had a week ago. That must have been something. But we all know when you're riding high, you fall hard. That's the one thing you have to be concerned about if you're a Dolphins fan. When you come off of a game of that stature, it is impossible to live up to the hype that you have just set yourself up for coming off of a game like that. So that to me is the tough thing. Everyone sees what the Dolphins did last week and says, hey, they can just score on anybody. They can run it up. They can go nuts, especially when it looked as effortless as it did last week. But this is a whole different matchup, and that's why I think you wipe the slate clean. As far as the good and the bad, right? I think you look back what the Bills were week 1 against the Jets. We haven't even seen a shade of that the following 2 games. You look at what the Dolphins have been, and they have been consistent. I have to give them credit there. They really have. The offense has been consistently performing at a high level. But when you have set your bar that high, it's extremely hard to keep delivering on that. And that's why today I just don't anticipate the Dolphins being able to move up and down the field like they have become accustomed to early on here. And like Robert's saying, that's another thing too. You know, Denver did give up late last week. Of course they did. It was just an embarrassing performance by the Denver Broncos. And that's no discount to what the Dolphins did. The reason the Broncos gave up is because they were in a position to give up. That game was over at halftime. But even so, right? The Dolphins weren't even trying to score, it felt like, late in that game, and they were still running the ball up and down the field. They went for over 700 yards of offense. It's unheard of. You'll see that on Saturdays like yesterday. You'll see that at the college level. Like if you're watching USC Colorado or Ole Miss versus LSU, yeah. Those 2 teams are just going up and down the field, scoring points at will. You do not see that in the NFL. It just doesn't exist, right? It doesn't exist. What they pulled off last week was just nuts. Crazy. And I think that that's a perfect time for that to have happened if you're a Bills fan. Get that out of the way. Have them come off that game right into your buzzsaw. That's how I look at it, right? But this game is going to be super tough for both sides. And I think that we are now watching a Miami Dolphins team that at this point last year were getting similar hype. If you remember this point last year, everybody in the mainstream media wanted to crown the Miami Dolphins as the new AFC East Kings. The way they had started off, it just looked like everybody was trying to find a way to knock the Bills down a peg. They still are trying to do that. When you rise up like the Bills have under Josh Allen, everyone's looking for the downfall. And they were advocating for the Miami Dolphins real heavily to try and make that pass last year, and it just didn't come to fruition. But I think this year, whereas opposed to last year, the credit was not earned yet. I don't think the respect level was earned yet. It certainly has been earned by the Miami Dolphins early on. No matter how biased of a Bills fan you are, you cannot discredit what the Miami Dolphins have done. They have probably been the best team in the AFC. Not probably. They have been the best team in the AFC through the first month of football here. And this is their first true test where both sides of the ball are elite in the Bills offense and the Bills defense. They went against the Chargers in week 1 who have an elite offense, but their defense, not even close. And the coaching as well of the LA Chargers, it's just inadequate compared to what Mike McDaniel's been able to do with these with the Miami Dolphins. The coaching matchup today, I think it's an awesome dynamic. You got Sean McDermott calling the defensive play calling for the Buffalo Bills. He has been extraordinary at doing so early on here. And you have what many people are calling a offensive genius in Mike McDaniel. And I think that has been earned to some degree early on here. When you're scoring 70 points, there has got to be something you're doing that nobody else isn't. Right? Right? You got a real extraordinary offensive coach butting heads against a real great defensive coach. And that's where you see the chess game really play out. And that, to me, is why I feel that this game lies between the Miami offense and the Bills defense. I anticipate the Bills being able to score like they have been against this Miami defensive unit. The Bills had gone against a real solid front four last week against the Washington Commanders. They did not touch Josh Allen. No sacks for Chase Young and company. We're not able to sack Josh Allen. We're not able to get near Josh Allen. They wound up resulting in a 38-point performance, a 37-point performance. I keep screwing those up. 38-37 Raiders, Commanders. But they were not able to get after Josh Allen at all. And that was a better defensive front than given credit for in Washington. I know that Washington's offense is not nearly as good as what some of the rest of the league is featuring. And I know that when you have an offense that is not able to keep the scoreboard respectable, then the whole team gets discounted. And I think the Washington Commanders have been discounted on defense because of their inability to make the score look respectable when they're playing some of the top opponents in this league. But that's still a good defense. And if you remember the week prior, you have Max Crosby, who's one of the best edge presences in the league. And Spencer Brown shut him down. So what I'm getting at here is that this Bills offense going against this Miami defense, which I don't think is leaps and bounds better than the two defenses that we've seen in the past 2 weeks in these Buffalo Bills. I think the Bills are going to be able to have more of an offensive performance today that's on par with what they've done the last 2 weeks than with the Miami Dolphins' ability to be able to be on par with what they've done over the last week or even in week 1 against the Chargers. So to me, it lies down to what the Bills defense is going to be able to do against Tua, Tyreek, Jalen Waddle, and Mostert. You got two linebackers coming into this game that, as it stands right now, are the best pass coverage linebackers in the league through the first 3 weeks. And Matt Milano has been, to me, one of the best defenders in the entire league through the first month. What he has been doing and what he has been doing for these Buffalo Bills for a while now, to me, has resulted in one of the more underrated defensive performances that we've seen throughout the entire league. He got his flowers last year being named an All-Pro, but I still think Matt Milano is incredibly underrated. And then here's Terrell Bernard. Nobody saw this coming. The departure of Tremaine Edmonds, many people had questions, right? Are they going to be able to fill that gap? Are they going to be able to replace Tremaine Edmonds adequately? It was going to be a tough task because you did not have the resources to go out and get a quote-unquote top linebacker. But as you see a month in, the Chicago Bears overpay for Tremaine Edmonds. What has that resulted in? An 0-3 start, more than likely an 0-4 start today, in my opinion. I think that they're going to lose to the Denver Broncos today. I just got to think Denver gets it right against Chicago. If you can't get it right against Chicago, you're not going to get it right against anybody. And if you can't come out and perform after getting drubbed like you did last week against the Dolphins, then you can just shut it down in Denver. But the departure of Tremaine Edmonds has not been noticed. It has not been felt. And if anything, through the first month of the season, it has felt like an upgrade with Terrell Bernard. AFC Defensive Player of the Week last week, much deserved. The best defender in the entire league last week against the Washington Commanders. What was he not doing? What was he not doing? That was one of those performances where you knew he was going to win AFC Defender of the Week in the middle of the game. You knew it was a guarantee. As it stands right now, he and Matt Milano, according to their the QBR when being targeted, they are the two best pass covering linebackers in the league. If there's anybody through the first month of the NFL season here that is going to be able to limit this air attack of the Miami Dolphins, you would think it would be the two guys who have had the most dominant pass coverage early on here. Right? Now, I'm not saying that Terrell Bernard and Matt Milano are going to completely take away what the Miami Dolphins want to do, and that's move the ball down the field through the middle. If you look at the target sheet for Tua. You know how they come out with those advanced stat maps where it shows you where the ball gets thrown most frequently by a quarterback? Tua loves throwing the ball in the middle of the field. He rarely throws the ball outside of the numbers. So the majority of this game for the Dolphins and their air attack is going to be through Matt Milano and Terrell Bernard. And they have been extraordinary through the first month. I don't know if we're going to be able to expect the dominance we have seen because it's just not sustainable. But as I keep saying, if you had anybody out there to be able to do it, you would think it would be the two guys who have been putting up the numbers that they have put up early on here. And that, to me, is an exciting aspect of this one. This is going to be Terrell Bernard's biggest task to date. He's come out through the first month with his new starting role and has shined, outperformed anybody's expectations. This is the game where you really make a name for yourself. He's already on pace. If Terrell Bernard can come off of being AFC Defensive Player of the Week and parlay that into a dominant performance against this offense, you are solidifying a name for yourself in this league. Huge task today. I am very excited to see what he's going to be able to bring to the table today in this type of environment. Scrolling through, seeing if I'm missing anything here as far as what else is being noted going into the game. Another aspect for the Miami Dolphins that is worth of some note. Last week, despite the 70-point performance and the dominant offensive game for the Miami Dolphins, Jalen Waddle was not featured in that game. He was out. He will be back this week. He was the guy that I think took over last year against these Buffalo Bills outside of Tyreek Hill, who, like I mentioned, the Bills were able to bottle him up a bit. And when I say bottle up, if you say that about any other wide receiver, you would imagine that to mean that they held him to a pretty terrible day. But bottling up Tyreek Hill that's not in the same category as bottling up any other receiver. Because if you let Tyreek Hill have an average day, then that means he has well north of 100 yards, numerous catches, and got in the end zone. I think bottling up Tyreek Hill is probably holding him to around 70-ish yards or so, but more importantly, not allowing him to get those massive chunk plays that are short throws turned into major gains. That's what Tyreek Hill has lived on. That is what he has burnt opponents on. We all know, as Bills fans, he has burnt us on those a couple of times back with the Chiefs. That is what you want to limit Tyreek Hill's ability to do in a big game like this. If you're going to allow him to get the crossing patterns going for 30, 40 yards, eat up yards after the catch on short slants, it's going to be a long day. He's still going to get his, that's for sure. He's still going to have his numbers. It's going to come down to the ability to limit the amount of major chunk plays that he eats up. That could open up things for Jalen Waddle. He's more of their deep threat. That could open things up. There are times where it just feels like the focus is so much on Tyreek Hill that all of a sudden Jalen Waddle will be wide ass open. You got to pick your poison sometimes when you're playing a team like this. When you have a team with this elite offensive talent, it does not get much better at all than Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle when it comes to offensive weapons. That is probably the best wide receiver tandem in the league. Certainly seems to have been through the early going here in 2023. And when you look at the other arguments, one, of course, is always in Cincinnati. I mean, they've been anemic early on here. It has not been better than what the Miami Dolphins have had. And even when they did not have Jalen Waddle, they still find ways to be productive. Mike McDaniel has been phenomenal at taking advantage of Tua's ability to throw the ball accurately and quickly. That has been the focus for the Miami Dolphins early on here. Mike McDaniel has put Tua in situations to succeed. He's getting guys wide open. Tua's getting rid of the ball almost instantly, and his accuracy has been phenomenal. Tua has not been touched hardly at all throughout the first couple of games here in this season. He has the lowest QB hit rate, I think, in the league, by far the lowest. But that's where I find another interesting dynamic to rear its head in this game. The Bills have one of the highest pressure rates in the league, despite not blitzing hardly at all. The Bills have done an extraordinary job getting pressure on the quarterback with base personnel and have not had to send the house in order to get that pressure. Meanwhile, plenty of teams have tried their best to send the house at Tua and these Dolphins, but they just get burnt in doing so. Tua is no longer holding the ball too long. Tua is no longer making real bonehead decisions like he had been accustomed to doing in the past. He has really flipped the script on that. Getting rid of the ball quick. Guys are wide open. Guys are, coming off of their routes to the point where right when the ball is snapped, there seems to always be a guy open in the middle for for Tua to hit. And that is how they have been able to get this offense humming at an all-time clip in the first month. And that's why most people, I've been seeing people try to crown an early September MVP guy. A lot of people are saying Tua, and that's because it has just been a perfect situation. Now, people say that he's a system quarterback and all this. I don't buy that. That to me is a stupid argument, because you still have to be able to execute the system. Whether you're a system quarterback or not, you still got to be capable of being able to execute that system. Tua has done an extraordinary job of executing that system through the early going here. But what do these two quarterbacks have in common? It's not a whole lot. You have Josh Allen, who is obviously much bigger than Tua Tagovailoa. You have a much stronger arm in Josh Allen. I think you have the better athlete overall in Josh Allen. There's not a whole lot of similarities to these guys. I mean, you can't even compare the same throwing arm. Tua's a lefty, Josh is a righty. There's not a whole lot to compare. The one thing that I think is comparable, and the one thing that I think is going to be a major factor in this game, is that both of these quarterbacks are susceptible to having a throw or two in a game where you see it and you say to yourself, what the hell was he thinking? What the hell was he looking at? Why would he throw that ball? There have been a couple of throws from Tua through the early going here where he'll be looking phenomenal right throughout the game, hitting guys underneath, right on the numbers, incredibly accurate. And then all of a sudden, he'll throw a deep ball. He'll throw a deep bomb, and it's about 10 yards underthrown, and it almost looks like a punt, and it's picked off. Then you have Josh Allen, who at times, and we saw this once last week, this was literally the equivalent of a punt because it was 3rd and long. Allen just chucks it deep, picked off. But we saw this, of course, in a egregious abundance against the New York Jets, where in week 1, Josh Allen was just throwing the ball for no reason. It felt like he was throwing into windows that were not there. He was trying to make plays happen that were certainly not available, and that resulted in numerous turnovers. Both of these quarterbacks are susceptible to that. Who's going to play the cleanest game? I know the old cliche is the winner of the football game is going to be the team that wins the turnover battle. It's the old cliche. But I think there's some holes to that cliche. I think, say last week, the Bills don't turn the Commanders over 5 times. And say they don't win the turnover battle. I think the Bills still win that game. The Bills are the far better team. Same can be said in the Vegas game. Say the Bills lose the turnover battle last week or the week prior 2-1, 2-0, something like that. I still have confidence in the Bills' ability to win. I think you even saw it on display in that Jets game, despite the loss. Josh Allen turned the ball over 4 times And the Bills still had the ball late to tie it and the first possession in overtime to win it. The Jets needed a punt return in overtime and the worst performance, arguably, of Josh Allen's career to win that game. So it's not always win the turnover battle, you win the game, because far often, just the better team overall wins the game despite their mistakes. It only seems to occur when you add up an insane amount of mistakes that ultimately end up killing you. This game, however, is way different. This game could be part of that old cliche where you say, win the turnover battle, you win the game, right? I could see this game being decided on one or two plays. That's how good these two teams are. You give one of these teams an additional advantage, however small it may be, that could be what tips the scale. And I think that today, the cleaner game by either quarterback is going to result in the W. I think the Bills might have an advantage there because they are, I think, more capable of forcing Tua into situations where he may make a mistake. The key for Josh Allen is not forcing himself into situations to make a mistake. It doesn't seem often that the defense is the one that completely forces Josh Allen into making the mistakes that we have seen from him. It oftentimes seems as though Josh Allen just puts that on himself. In that Jets game, you could argue, I would say, 3 of the 4 turnovers were on Josh Allen. The fumble was certainly on Josh Allen alone. He dropped the snap and then basically dropped it again once he picked it up. Then the one interception, he's rolling to the left. He has nothing but daylight in front of him to run for a first down. He throws it into double coverage. I expect when you're throwing it into double coverage with a throw that looks like a punt, that 2 NFL defensive backs are going to be capable of catching that. It's nothing that the Jets defense did. So it's going to come down to Josh's ability to not let this moment get too big for him. And we've seen plenty of times throughout his career here where the moment does not get too big. In fact, we've seen Josh Allen rise to the occasion in these big moments more so than just about anybody else in the league. Josh loves the bright lights, and he usually comes out and performs extremely well in major situations. He's just going to have to go out today and not let the fact that this game means more than maybe the 2 previous games get in his head and trigger the I got to make a play when it's not here, Josh Allen. I think that is what we saw week 1. That game was getting away from them a bit. It didn't feel like they were in control. And so Josh, in prime time, huge spot, wanting to get the W, says, I got to put this team on my shoulders. I got to make something happen. And we all know what that resulted in. But then we go to the Raiders game, less pressure. And he tells himself in that game, I'm not going to force it. I'm going to take what the defense gives me. I'm going to play a high efficient game. And that resulted in an extraordinary day for Josh Allen, right? 31 of 37, couldn't miss. And then last week, I thought it regressed a bit more towards the mean, but I had said earlier in the week before that game that you can't expect the efficiency Josh Allen had against the Raiders every week, and we didn't get that last week. But what we got was still a solid game, but it still wasn't to the caliber that we expect of Josh Allen. I think early on here, you have one really great game from Josh Allen sandwiched between one really bad game and one okay game. It's time today for Josh Allen to once again have another great day, because I think he's going to have that. I don't know if the Miami Dolphins are the team anymore that you can just have a mediocre day against and get out of there with a victory. This game right now, it feels more like the games that the Bills have had against the Bengals and the Chiefs, where going into that one, Josh Allen's going to have to ball out in this game for the Bills to come out on top. previously against the Dolphins, I don't know if you said that to yourself. I think previously you would say, hey, just, rattle Tua and the rest will follow. I think that that's the mindset a lot of us have had. But this is a different feel this year. This Dolphins team has a different feel. And Tua, to me, has a different feel. I had been one of his harsher critics early on through his career here. And I think it was deserving. And plenty of people have been as well. But I'm also willing to admit when I'm wrong. And I like to do so because I hate being the biased fan in the room. I hate letting that get to me. Early on through the first month here, Tua has played exceptional football. And with the assets surrounding him and the coaching surrounding him, all he has to do is take advantage of what they've set him up for. And not only has he done that, but he's done that on a whole other level. It's no longer that same Miami Dolphins team where I think you look at them and you say, listen, the Bills just got to have a decent day and they can get out of there. Right? I think Josh Allen has to have a great day. Saw a comment down here that I want to talk about because I think this is prevalent. I think there's a lot of pressure today on both sides. Mike's coming in here. He's saying, how's all the pressure on Josh? Not all the pressure's on Josh. I don't think all the pressure's on Josh. There's some pressure on Josh today. I think both these two teams are facing pressure, but in two different ways. I think there's an adequate amount of pressure on both sides. I don't know if there's more leaning one way or the other. In my opinion, there's more pressure on the Bills because of what's at stake based on the result of this game. You lose this game, you fall to 2-2. Okay, fine. But you fall to 0-2 in the division. That is an extremely hard hole to dig yourself out of. And with the Dolphins playing as well as they have been, do you anticipate the Dolphins losing 2 more games in the AFC East throughout the rest of the year? The Bills will only have one more opportunity, obviously, to knock them off should they lose this one. So, okay, even if you think the Bills knock them off down the line here in the second game, to me, they have yet to play the Jets. The Jets are not good enough with Zach Wilson to beat the Dolphins. That's 2 wins for Miami. And I just don't think that the New England Patriots, despite having great defense, have the offensive capability of outscoring the Dolphins. You saw it a couple of weeks ago. I thought the Patriots played the Dolphins about as well as they could, and they could not win. They basically shut down the Dolphins' offense in the second half, and they still could not win, and that's because of their inadequacies on the offensive side of the ball. So you look at this game, I do not think the Miami Dolphins lose 2 more AFC East games should they not, or should they win today. So what situation does that put the Bills in? A not so good one, right? That's why, and I'm glad Todd's saying this, because this is how I feel. This game to me is as much of a playoff type game that a week 4 could possibly be. Because even though it is week 4 and there's still plenty of football to be played and we don't know what's going to happen, based on what we've seen thus far, I don't know how this game does not have a major impact on the final results of the season. Right? I don't know how it does not have major implications on the AFC playoff seeding. And you could make a real good argument today that the winner of this game is by far in the best situation to be the number 1 overall seed in the AFC. Because I think personally early on here, the Bengals, unless they completely right the ship, I am not seeing number 1 seed caliber performance out of Cincinnati early on here. They'd have to really flip the script. I had high hopes for Jacksonville, and despite, let me double check and see what the they're up 23-7 and it's over. Okay, they won 23-7. I was expecting more, though, out of Jacksonville. I was not expecting a 9-point performance against the Chiefs a couple of weeks back. I was not expecting them to get routed by Houston. They're not what I thought them to be early on in the year before it even started. To me, you got the Chiefs, of course, who will always be in contention for that number 1 until proven otherwise. But then, look around the conference. It's these two teams battling off against each other today. And if you win this game, you are set up to be able to dictate where the AFC playoffs go through. And if that doesn't scream playoff type atmosphere to you, then I don't know what will. That's what today's going to be. Huge. So the pressure for the Bills is that if you lose this game, you are in an incredibly tough situation when it comes to winning the division, when it comes to getting that number 1 overall seed. That's where the pressure is. The Dolphins can lose this game today and still have the ability to dictate, what they're capable of doing. The Bills dropping that game to the Jets looms large today, as we knew it would. Let's talk about where the pressure is, though, for Miami. This is Miami's opportunity to do what their fan base and many in the media have been clamoring them to do, or clamoring them to, I don't know, you could argue some of them have already said that they've done it, even though that they haven't. Plenty of people are just dying for this to happen. This is the opportunity, and that, of course, is to dethrone the Bills, pass them in the East, perhaps pass them overall in the conference. This is their opportunity, and it's probably the best opportunity they've had from a couple of standpoints, right? One standpoint, I think this is the best team that they've had. So clearly it's their best chance to do so with the most talent they've had, the best coaching they've had. But also because of the hole the Bills kind of made for themselves losing to the Jets. If they're capable of knocking off the Bills today, I think that they are able to deliver on what people have been waiting for outside of the Bills fan base, right? And that is, here are the Miami Dolphins. That's where the pressure is. There's pressure on Tua to be the quarterback to deliver on that. Because that'll be the talking point after today. Either way, I guarantee it. Dolphins win. Tua will be getting his flowers all week, right? Dolphins lose, and there's still plenty of this. There's as many people who want Tua to succeed, I think, as there are people who want him to fail. There's a weird group of people out there that just bask in the downfall of Tua. I mean, obviously we do, but we're Bills fans. We need the downfall of Tua and the Miami Dolphins in order for our lives to be easier. But those outside of it, I don't quite understand the constant anticipation of Tua imploding. If you're not a Bills fan or a Jets fan, I don't know what benefit that brings you. So I don't quite get that. But today, if Tua wins the game, then he gets his flowers all week long. He loses, I'll promise you this. All those people I was just talking about, they'll come out of the woodwork and they'll be back saying, I told you Tua couldn't win the big game. Don't think for a second there's not pressure on Tua, and don't think there's not pressure on the Dolphins. There's an adequate amount of pressure on both sides of the field today. And that's just one of the many reasons why this one is as big as it is. But don't just take my word for it. We got to take my main man, who I just saw come in to the background. We'll bring him on right now, and I want to start off by asking him a question right about what we're talking about right now. And it's about the pressure. Rico, what is up, baby?
Ow, ow, ow. What's happening, brother?
Let's waste no time. We're talking about where the pressure is today. And I had said, Rico, I think that both teams are facing pressure today for different reasons. I think the pressure's on the Bills because of obvious reasons. You lose today, 0-2 in the division, tough hole to crawl out of. The pressure's on the Dolphins because, hey, this is your chance to leap the Bills. Everybody's been waiting for you to do it. Here's your best crack to do it. Who do you think's got the most pressure today? And ultimately, where do you think the edge is for one side or the other today when it comes to that? Do you think that there's an edge for the Dolphins based on where they currently sit? Or do you think there's an edge for the Bills based on what their defense has been doing, what Josh Allen's been doing the past 2 weeks, and where they currently sit?
Listen, Z-Bot, that's a freaking great lead up, by the way. Appreciate you holding it down.
You bet, my man. Are you kidding me? I can't get in this game. I mean, I can't believe it's here. This is one of those ones where you wait all week, Rico, just not, like counting down the minutes.
Listen, shout out to you for holding it down. So pressure is on both sides, but I think pressure is more on the Bills.
Mm.
I think the pressure's more on the Bills because they're the ones having to defend the title. You've got to defend the title. These guys, the Dolphins, have been nipping at our heels the last couple of years, especially last year. They've been really, really kind of evening out the playing field. And I believe they feel that they can play with us. They feel like they've got the talent to go toe-to-toe with the Bills. So there's less pressure on them, more so we're going to prove that we're better than you. So the Bills got the pressure of saying, hey, first of all, I'm already down 0-1 in the division. We lost to the freaking Jets. I don't know how we lost to the Jets. We did nonetheless. We can't afford to go down 0-2 in the division. Going down 0-2 in the division not only hurts us in the division, hurts us in the conference. We can't have that. And then on top of that, then you got Miami Dolphins fans just won't stop chirping, and we don't see them until week 18. Now, at that point,
that's a great point.
What it matters now. This is when it matters. We need this game. I hate to jump in there and say, well, this is the game we need because it is the big game. I don't care what anybody tells us because we play the dog. It's not like we play them back in week 10 and we're like, all right, we can get this.
Right.
No. We don't face them until week 18. So the pressure's on the Bills. The pressure's on Josh Allen.
So does that make it a must win to you, Rico, as CLO asked here?
This is what I was going to say because I hate to bring it up week 4 of the season, but this is a must win. Now, first of all, kudos to the damn NFL for creating such a schedule that will piss Bills fans off and piss Dolphins fans off because they knew what was going to happen. They knew this was going to play out because they had them play the Patriots in the middle of the week, obviously in the first month. Then they made us play the Jets. So they knew either we're going to have 3-0 teams going at it, or we're going to have a team, you know what I'm saying, that took it out here. Oh my goodness. The NFL knew exactly what they were doing. And they said, this is going to be set up for great. So for me to say this is a must win, yes. The way the NFL set it up, yes, this is a must win. They didn't just make it, 2 games in October and then back to back in December. No. They made it early for a reason for us to sweat it out. So yes, the pressure is on the Bills, in my opinion. There's an amount of pressure on Tua and the Dolphins, but they're the hungrier ones. They're the ones going after their prey, right? And we are that prey. There used to be a time where the Bills were always in the hunt. We're always in the hunt. Oh, in the hunt, all day, every day, right? The playoff picture would show up. It'd be never the Bills first.
Dude, there was a time where I wanted to get in the hunt tattooed on me because it's all I wanted to see.
It was always the Bills are in the hunt. And I coined something years ago. I said the Bills are in the hunt but never catch their prey. They're always in the hunt. So now we've been the prey, right? So now it's the Miami Dolphins are like, yo, we've been, little brother for the last 10 games. All right, enough is enough already. We got to start, we got to start putting things together. So Tua's healthier. Tua's put a little more weight. Tua's learning how to fall down like a big boy. Tua's got some weapons on his as part of his arsenal. Jalen Waddle's back for this game. Tyreek Hill's talking about the Bills. I don't care about the Bills. I mean, he's not making bulletin board material, but he's like, who is Bills Mafia? I don't care who Bills Mafia is. We want to come in and do what we do. So they are as confident as can be. So there's not much pressure on them, especially when you have confidence on you. Like, how many times we want to beat the Patriots? And we're like, yo, this pressure.
Exactly. And you get the best crack too. That's the other thing that always comes from that as well. That's the key.
1,000%. So to me, the pressure's on the Bills. The pressure's on McDermott on trying to stop McDaniels.
See, that's what I think. That's one of the more underrated aspects of this game. That chess match. That chess match. I think it's unarguable now. Mike McDaniel, he's something special. This dude's something. This Dolphins team was inept until they found the capabilities that Mike McDaniel has brought to them. And I think one thing, Rico, and even myself, I'm guilty of this. I have not given this enough credit either. And I think it's just because, it's expectation.
Right.
No one's sitting here through 3 weeks saying, how about the defense that Sean McDermott's putting out there? No one's giving him really any of the credit. A lot of guys are getting credit, but I don't think anybody's really honed in on the fact that the pressure was on McDermott to come in and deliver on this defense in this new world he lives in, calling the plays. He has done that and then some. You don't get much better when it comes to this matchup here between opposing sides of the ball in offense and defense and the head coaching mindset. It's a real incredible asset of this, or aspect of this game.
And you're absolutely right. And not only does he have to face McDaniels, but he's got Vic Fangio.
Sure.
They added Vic Fangio on that squad. So for the longest time, the Bills have been able to just cook the Dolphins offensively. We go on the offense side of the ball. We do what we do because we just know that they just can't hang with us. We're too good. Then they bring in Vic Fangio, which is plays more of a zone type of defense. For the longest time under Flores, it was man to man. I couldn't believe he was putting man to man and letting Diggs cook. Now you got Vic Fangio that's got more of a playback, don't blitz, and he's pretty much going to dare Allen to, all right, let me see what you got. But if you had Russell Wilson cooking y'all for 300 yards, Mac Jones had a decent game against y'all.
And the Chargers offense went off almost 500.
Right. So this defense is definitely susceptible to big plays from the Bills. And the pressure really won't be on the offense side of the ball because we will do what we do. And I heard you earlier as I was trying to set myself up, and you're talking about time of possession. We are absolutely killing right now time of possession, and that's the new formation that we've been kind of introducing to the league, which is that 12 introducing to the league, but something that's out of the norm for the Bills. Yeah, exactly, right. So this new 12 personnel has us kind of controlling the clock, and what you want to do if you can control the clock and you can still put points up on the board, and you keep these guys off the field. That's the way to go. That's the way to go in this game, man. Control the clock, run the football. We seem to be able to run the football. And I don't know if you went over the inactives for the Dolphins.
We did, yep.
They've got some key players that won't be playing today. Yeah. So offensively, we're going to be able to get after them because I think, who was it? Eichenberg is the one starting. He's starting, and Eichenberg is not good. So Ed Oliver and the guys interior should be able to eat no problem. So Tua is going to be under duress. And that 2.2 seconds to get over there, here's what people don't, I wouldn't say people don't realize, but if you look over at Greg Rousseau, he's like 6'7". You know what I'm saying? Wingspan like this. Tua's 5'11-ish, 6 foot. We'll give him 6 feet. You got Leonard Floyd, that's what, 6'4".
And he's been cooking, man. You want to talk about an underrated guy?
Listen, so if we can't get to you, we're putting our hands up. Yep. We are putting our hands up so we can distort this timing thing that you have going. So, see, and I'm confident these Bills can take. Listen, there are teams where I'm like, I'm not sure. Like the Jets just play us well. Dolphins, offensively, we got to stop them on running the football. And if we pay attention to the damn Dolphins and what they've done to us, it's a whole bunch of like this rigmarole of people going here and there and trying to confuse the defense. So if we're smart enough and we're disciplined enough, we're not going to fall for that crap. Do all the bullshit that you want. We're waiting for you. And we'll wait, and you play right into our hands. So we just can't get out of character because you said it. Raheem Mostert had a $120.
He to me is the biggest aspect of this game no one's talking about.
Oh, they're going to be talking about him.
Oh, yeah.
And if we slow them down, because that offense is predicated to have huge, big old gaps for these RBs to run in. So we have to A, tackle well, and B, be disciplined. We have to be disciplined. And we got to take away that little slant that these guys have. We got to take that in that intermediate pass that Tua loves and force him to throw outside. If we can, and I'm just throwing things out there because
it's true. He loves throwing the middle. He does not throw outside the numbers.
He loves the middle. And the middle is wide open for guys because they don't want Tyreek to, take him outside or decide on third. So if we force him to, stay outside, Trey White is coming into his own. Taylor Rapp is now going to be playing. Poyer out. And I was kind of worried about Poyer a little bit in this game.
Elam inactive again.
Listen, he's on the inactive list. Kyer Elam again, inactive. That's 4 weeks straight. At this point, what are we doing?
I don't know. I don't know if I don't know.
This was the game. This was the game that maybe he played.
Yes, I know. I was talking to Dan Mitchell about that earlier this week as he was saying, maybe the speed aspect of a younger guy like him you bring in for Tyreek. And I was like, okay, maybe. At the same time, I'm like, do I also want to trust his first game of the year being against this offense? And sure enough, no, it wasn't the case. So, they've been terrific. So it's not been, that's why no one really seems to care. We would certainly care if it was not, terrific. But Rico, a couple things before we close up and get ready to go watch this thing. I got to ask you.
It's too bad because I was getting hyped up and ready to go.
I know it. It's okay though, because this hour it seems to fly. I thought we had more time than we did as well. But we like to be as honest and bipartial as possible because we know that rarely exists amongst the fan base, any fan base. We know how tough that is. But the one guy I give him credit. despite the fact that he is a freaking Fins fan, he still is honest. Have you talked to Kevin today? And if you did, what are his thoughts on this game from the Dolphins' perspective?
So I had Kevin on the show on Friday, and Kevin. And if you know Kevin, and Kevin he keeps it real, guess what his score prediction was? Well, who did he have winning the game? Let's put it that way.
All right, so I'm guessing the way you set that up, he's got Miami winning by double digits.
He's got the Bills winning this game. He's got the Bills winning this game 34-20.
Sometimes I wonder if he does that so he can save himself from a letdown from everybody else.
Yeah, I swear I've been calling him out. I've been calling him out for that all the time. Like, just go with it, man. Just if you feel they're going to win, just say it. He just doesn't do it. Now, whether he truly believes that the Dolphins are just not ready for this game and it won't happen, that I do not know. But that's what he's got. He's got at 34-20 for the Bills. Yeah.
All right. So before we got 2 minutes till kick, so we'll leave with this. What do you got for this game? Where do you see it going?
I don't think this is going to be as high scoring as people think. Like
Agreed.
34. I just don't think it's going to be that. I think it's going to be in that between that 17 to 25 range. That's where we're going to be in that 20. And so I have the Bills winning this one at home. I'd say 24-20, 24-21 in that range. It's going to be a close game.
I'm right there with you. I got 27-23. I just think that the Bills, the advantage here to me is that the Bills offense versus the Dolphins defense. I think that's going to outweigh just a bit what the offense of the Miami Dolphins are capable of. I got a better defense in the Bills, and I got an elite offense going against a weaker defense compared to the Bills in the Dolphins. I think that edges it out just a bit, but it's also going to come down to clean ball. Josh Allen plays a clean game today, Rico. I love our chances, but if we start out with we start seeing a little sugar highness early on here, I'm going to be a little bit more nervous than maybe I should be. But I got the Bills today, and I have to trust them in this situation. A huge spot. I got to trust them to get it done because this is about as big as a Week 4 game can get. So
it's a big game, man. I didn't want to be in that position to say this is must win, but this is must win.
It's huge.
It's got it.
Let's go freaking watch it, baby. You guys go to watch it too. Rico will be with you afterwards. I'll be with you tomorrow night, and we can't wait to freaking talk about it. Enjoy the game, everybody. Squish the fish.
Squish the fish, baby. Let's go.
Go Bills.
Let's go. Go Bills.